we have new camera specs for the iPhone 17 Pro. So let's do our classic deep dive. Comparison with the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. We have all the details right here. Let's get started. Camera specs comparison first. The main wide camera. Both phones packed 48 megapixel sensors. Samsung claims this is their latest Fusion main. It has an f1.78 aperture. It has sensor shift OIS, 24mm equivalent focal length. And then on the Apple side we have +1 over here. So the iPhone gets a 200 megapixel camera. It has an f1.7 aperture. It's also a pretty large one over 1.3-inch sensor. And we know Apple likes to put OIS on their main cameras. So it has that too. So basically on the spec sheet, the iPhone looks like the winner here. It should be a really solid main camera. Let's go ahead and give them each a +1. For ultra-wide, we have 48 megapixels on both. Samsung claims this is a new ultra-wide, with around 120 degrees field of view. And again, it has that extra stop of light with the f2.2 aperture. Now on the Apple side, the iPhone 17 Pro gets a 50 megapixel ultra-wide at around 120 degrees FOV and f1.9 aperture. Again, there are two things going for Samsung. It's got a bit more of a boost in field of view, and also that extra stop of light. I think the ultra-wide race is super tight these days. So let's give Samsung a little bump here. And also they both get a +1. Now for triple rear lenses, we have Samsung with a 48 megapixel periscope telephoto. This means around 100mm equivalent focal length and 4 times optical zoom. That is typical for periscopes. Then the second lens is also a 48 megapixel, but it's labeled as optical quality 8 times zoom. And how does that work? Well, it's probably going to be doing the same thing that the iPhone does with the iPhone 16 Pro series. It's using sensor crop to give you that 8 times optical quality zoom. So basically you're just cropping into the 200 megapixel sensor. You don't have another dedicated lens, but you can use that to get the 8 times optical quality zoom. And then finally, there's a 12 megapixel optical quality, 2 times telephoto with OIS on the telephoto lens. On the Apple side, we have a +2 because we have 2 telephoto lenses. Both have optical image stabilization, so that's nice. They have very similar focal lengths as well. So let us give Apple a +2. And then Samsung also gets a +2 because it has got 3 cameras back there. For front or selfie camera, Samsung stays at 18 megapixels. I believe this was introduced with the S24 lineup. It has auto framing and strong video capabilities. I like that Apple bumped this up to 12 megapixels. We've seen it at 12 for a while. So nothing too crazy here. But if you look at this versus the S24 lineup, I think Apple's front camera is definitely much stronger than the last few years. So let's give Apple a +2 here. And Samsung also gets a +2 for the front camera. Now for video capabilities, the iPhone has always been the gold standard. You can shoot 4K up to 120 frames per second from the main camera. Dolby Vision support, strong support for ProRes and ProRes RAW, spatial video, cinematic modes, all that stuff. It's been a real bread and butter strength of the iPhones for quite a few years now. So Apple gets a +2 here. Samsung is not too shabby either. It can shoot 8K video up to 30 frames per second from the main camera and 4000 up to 60 or even 120 frames per second on the various lenses. So again, it's got many different frame rates to choose from. And besides that, I think the color science may appeal to some people more. Like you may prefer the way Samsung processes colors. Plus, they have really strong OIS plus EIS combos that help out in video. So let's give Samsung a +2 here as well. Let's take a look at strengths and weaknesses. Now for strengths of the iPhone 17 Pro. First of all, it's got a very balanced set of lenses here. You have a main, you have an ultra-wide, you have a periscope telephoto, and then you have a really strong telephoto range via the sensor crop for 8 times. Optical quality zoom. It's actually a very complete set of lenses, and you get the benefits of the main sensor being 200 megapixels. And as I mentioned earlier, Apple has always been very strong on the video features. There's ProRes, there's cinematic modes, high frame rate, 4K video, all that stuff. And usually you'll find that Apple tends to do a really solid job with color science and the video pipelines. So that's a big strength. And also Apple has traditionally been very strong on the software side. So the combination of hardware and software, Smart HDR, the photonic engine, deep fusion for low light or mixed lighting scenes, that's a big strength as well. So let's give Apple a +1 here. For weaknesses, even though the iPhone supports 8 times optical quality zoom via sensor crop, native optical zoom is only 4 times, so you're still cropping in to get that 8 times optical quality zoom. That could be a disadvantage compared to Samsung, where you have a native optical zoom of 5 times. With such high MP counts, noise under low light or in dark shadows can be tougher to manage. Sometimes the iPhone can be a bit more aggressive with processing or smoothing in difficult lighting scenarios. And also, ultra-wide and telephoto may show some distortion or less sharpness toward the edges in certain conditions. And then finally, video color science. Sometimes it can show more punchy or less natural tones versus Samsung. Of course, this varies person to person, but it's worth mentioning. Let's give Apple a -1 for each of those, and that gives us a total of +1. Now for the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, let's talk about the strengths. First of all, the very high-resolution 200MP main sensor. This gives you a lot of detail, especially in good lighting. And yes, you can totally see that in the sample shots. So that's a huge strength. And also the ultra-wide got a significant upgrade from 48 megapixels to 50 megapixels. And I'm seeing really nice results. More detail in the shot, and overall better performance in wide shots. That's nice. And also the zoom capability is pretty strong, especially with the 5 periscope and the 3 telephoto lens. And those are really good for distant subjects. Plus, the large sensor size helps a lot with depth of field. So that's great. Let's give Samsung a +2 here. Now for weaknesses. Despite the fact that the S25 Ultra supports 5x periscope and 3x telephoto lenses, if you want to zoom further, you have to rely on the sensor crop. And when you start getting to the higher zoom ranges, Samsung will likely have the edge over the iPhone. And also, although Samsung's main camera is very high resolution and gives a lot of detail, in darker or mixed lighting scenarios, it can sometimes struggle a bit. So that's something to keep in mind. And I feel like the video color science may not be as consistent as Apple's. So depending on the scene, you might get slightly more aggressive processing or inconsistent white balance. So that's a weakness. And finally, in some ultra-wide shots, especially at night, the color or sharpness may not be consistent across the frame. So let's give Samsung a -1 for each of those, and that gives us a total of +1. Alright, so the verdict. Which one is better? Well, I think it depends on what you prioritize. Go for the iPhone 17 Pro, if you care about video quality, reliable performance under varied conditions, color accuracy, and a balanced camera system with powerful computational photography. Choose the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra if you want maximum detail in photos, especially in good lighting, powerful zoom capabilities, especially for distant shots, and a more versatile array of lenses. If you tell me your priorities, for example, travel photography, vlogging, night shots, zoom, whatever it is that you do, I can suggest which phone will serve you best. Alright, everyone, thanks for watching. Questions, comments, leave them down below. Thanks for watching. See you next time.